episode of Rebels and Radicals, hosted by yours truly, Amanda Seals. Now, we started this series because I wanted to give you all examples of rebels and radicals because I feel like so often we're just seeing things through a very myopic lens. We're really looking at folks basically in ways that are only dictated to us by a certain group of folks. So I wanted to say, you know what? Let's look at them through another lens. Let's look at these individuals in truth, how they want to be seen. So for this episode, we're looking at a dope clip from the chanteuse, the rebel, the radical, the revolutionary, Ms. Nina Simone. Now, for those who don't know, Nina Simone was more than just a jazz singer. And at a certain point in her career, Nina said, you know what? If I'm gonna be on stage, then I have to be speaking radically about what is going on with my people. And she was referring to the oppression of Black people in the United States, or else I don't wanna do it. And that really was a difficult thing for her because at the time, that meant that she was getting blacklisted. That meant that people were definitely trying to keep money out of her pocket. And she was absolutely held back from doing what she does as an artist. She went overseas and she continued to make money in that way. It was a very difficult time for her, but she still stayed committed to her cause, which is indicative of her rebelliousness and her radicalism. Now let's take a look at this clip where she's speaking about what it means for her to show up for her audience and how she wants her audience to respond.
What I hope to do all the time is to be so completely myself, which that's what I hope I am. To be so much myself that my audiences and even people who meet me are confronted. They're confronted with what I am, inside and out, as honest as I can be. In this way, they have to see things about themselves immediately.
Now, some people might say, Amanda, like, why is this radical? Let me tell you why it's radical. Because I think for so many artists, especially right now, they don't want to be themselves on stage. They have alternate personalities, they're putting on all this pageantry, they basically become a different entity when they are performing. And then they become who they actually really are for themselves. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that per se, but as we have come into the age of alternative facts, saying that you really want to just show up in your whole self, that you want to be as you are, is not only incredibly unique and radical, it's vulnerable. And I would say that being fully vulnerable in that way is a radical act, particularly when we are in a time, and she was in a time, where so many folks are ready to sling arrows at somebody like her, who was being her whole Black self. Nina Simone, a dark-skinned Black woman with strong African features, wearing her natural hair and singing about everybody knows about Mississippi, goddamn. I mean, she was showing up in her full rebellious, radical mind state. Now here we are in 2022, and I hope that we get to see more artists showing up this way, because I feel like it is showing up in this way that makes so many folks who are watching feel power to show up in this way as well. And when you are showing up full, you have so much more energy to give to other things than protecting yourself from irrational fears and insecurities that really were put on you by somebody else. You see, that's why so many people are afraid to be their full selves. It's not because they are unsure of themselves or because they're afraid of themselves. It's because they don't want the backlash that comes with being their full self. And I don't blame them. As somebody who shows up as my full self all the time, I will tell you that when you show up in your full true self, you are going to make people uncomfortable because you are absolutely mirroring for them what they're not being. Now, some people love that. They love the mirror because it makes them say, you know what? I'm taking on this challenge. I am stepping up to the plate and I'm going to see you where you at and I'm going to get there myself. And that is radical thinking, right? Rebelling against this idea that you have to be tucked away or small or diminished is definitely something we need more people to do. And we need more people to do that for a multitude of reasons, right? We need more people to do that on a basic level simply because we would love to have a more honest society, right? We also need people to do that because at the end of the day, we got to spend way more time fighting oppression than fighting ourselves and fighting our community. I thank Ms. Nina Simone for the work that she did and for the music that she created, but I thank her for saying things like this because it really does create a blueprint for radical thought as it applies to artistry and how we show up as people in the world and as public figures and how we demand our public figures show up as well and who we support and why we support them. So on this episode of Rebels and Radicals, no, we're not talking about revolution as it relates to socio-political and social justice. We're talking about how you are showing up in the world in a radical way by simply just being who you are. That's it for another episode of Rebels and Radicals. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you take some time out to listen to some of Miss Nina Simone's music. When you think about somebody who you feel like shows up as their full self, who are some names that come to mind when you think about those artists? How do you consider yourself showing up to your full self? What do you think keeps you or keeps others from showing up as their full self? Do you like it when you feel that uncomfortableness, or does it make you say, I need to get back to someone who's just gonna put on a show? Let us know right here in the comments. This is another episode of Rebels and Radicals for you, the SEAL Squad in the Amandaverse.